Rockin', rollin', swaggin' to the max. My bitch a fashion killer, she be busy poppin' tags. Rockin', rollin', swaggin' to the max. My bitch a fashion killer, she be busy poppin' tags.
Okay, now this may look like a lot of materials, but it's really just the basics of getting started with sewing. Because sewing can be really expensive, I would suggest not to go out and buy a lot of material at one time. So this video is to show you what's more important when you're just getting started. Thread, of course, you need thread. You cannot sew without thread. You can find it on a big roll like this, which is usually used for a serger. So I wouldn't recommend buying thread this big yet until you get into using a serger or even doing some hand sewing. But you can use standard size spool of thread for hand sewing and for the machine. And this will go on the machine either this way, which is more common, or this way. So this is the size that you would probably buy more than anything. And this is small spool that's used for hand sewing, like something small. And it can be convenient, but for the most part, this is always the size that you want to use. This probably comes more so in the sewing kit too. And they do have pre-rolled thread, which is, this is a bobbin. So this is pre-rolled for the sewing machine. And I don't buy these because they're plastic and they might not be compatible for all machines. This too might come in a sewing kit. And it's good too for hand sewing. You just use a little thread. But I personally don't use these for my machine. And these are bobbins too. These are the bobbins that I buy. They're metal because all bobbins are not the same, even though they might look the same. Like this bobbin right here has all holes in it. It doesn't have like a little slot on it, but it's for a different machine. And this bobbin right here, probably the one that you'll see the most, especially for singer sewing machines with the little slit right there. But I'll talk about that more when we talk about thread and sewing machine. But you definitely want to have at least, I would say, 4 or 6 of these starting off. And they usually come in packs anyway, so you might buy a pack with 4 of them in there, 6 in there, just depends. This is the most important thing. Scissors are like your God, your business partner, your sewing mate, everything. Like, you should guard your scissors with your life, because if you drop these things, they can become uneven. They can cut uneven. They can have like a little bend in it, a little gap in it, and they will never cut the same again. And these are cutting shears. You see how they're not really flat. They have like a little angle to them. So when you're cutting, the scissors will stay straight, but your hand will be like in an angle. The most important thing next to thread is having good scissors. Invest in one good pair of shears. Protect them. Do not drop them. Do not let anybody use them. Do not use them for your hair. Do not use them to cut anything but fabric. Because if you do that and use it for your hair or cutting paper or anything that is not fabric, you may compromise the quality of the scissors and the way they cut. So again, buy a good pair of shears and make sure that you protect these. Keep them somewhere where they won't fall off the table easily, break, bend, have a gap in it, become uneven. Also, you want to keep these scissors away from moisture so they don't get wet and rusty. But we'll talk about that too when we talk about setting up our table and maintaining our supplies. That's going to be another video too. But I'm just telling you now, these are very important. Your cutting shears. This is another style of cutting scissors. These are like a straight, no angle to it. And these are just regular cutting scissors. But again, don't let them fall. Don't use it for anything else. This is another straight cutting pair. And this pair is a pair that you can use. These are the small cutting shears, good for when you're sewing at the sewing machine and you have the thread. You always want to keep a small pair of scissors available for cutting small pieces of thread. It's easier, it's convenient, it's very much so needed, and you'll understand why once you start sewing more. If you want to get all 3 pair of scissors, that's fine. Just get something that feels good in your hand, but definitely get a small pair as well. And as far as thread, you can get like some wax, and they come in different styles. And the wax is just, you see this here, excuse me, this here has different little slots on it. You just lay the thread across it and let the wax get on it. front and back. And this makes the wax, this makes the thread more stiff and easier to thread in the machine and through the needle holes when you're doing hand sewing or sewing on the sewing machine. Makes it easier to guide into the eye of the needle. And the eye of the needle is the hole, the part you put the thread through. So you can have wax if you prefer wax. This is another threader. I don't use this. It's all about what you feel comfortable with. This is another threader. And I personally feel like this is a waste of my money and time, because you might spend 10 minutes trying to get this needle thread when I feel like it's probably easier for you to use either wax. And you know, some people, you know, might lick it, put the thread in their mouth and put it through the hole, wet it, you know, that's fine too, you know, whatever you feel comfortable with. But I mean, for professional use, you might want to get some wax. Also, many people have a magnifying glass to be able to see the hole of the needle better. They use a magnifying glass to guide the thread through the hole. But this is a really large needle. I don't use this needle for anything. These are needles that you use for hand sewing. Hand sewing, you will do a lot of that when you want to finish your garments in the corners, and certain little techniques to make your garments look finished really good and professional. So we'll talk about that too in a separate video. But you definitely want to get some hand needles, and you can get a pack of hand needles, and they come in different sizes. In one pack, you get maybe like 20 needles in one pack. I have it on this little ring. This ring, you can put it on your finger, and it's for convenience. You can really just stick pins in here, like these pins here, sewing pins. But I'm not recommending you to go out and buy all of these pin cushions. You can just buy one cushion and put your sewing pins in and your hand needles in. You don't have to buy everything all at one time. Just buy one cushion, which will be good for your sewing machine needles, your pins, and your hand needles. And get one box of sewing pins. Now, sewing pins come in different sizes, depending on, I guess, what you're working on. But just to start off, I would say get a pack of small and a pack of large. That way, you're starting off pretty good. You got a different size. So this is like the small size. It's really tiny. You probably can't tell with my hands. And this is like the medium size. And they also have large, which I don't think I have any large inside of here. Let me see if I have another type of sewing pin on here, because there are also sewing pins that don't have the little beads on it. Here they are. Now these sewing pins don't have the little bead on it, but it's still a sewing pin. I personally don't like to use these unless I'm working with some type of delicate fabric, or I already can't even think of anything on top of my head I'd rather use it for. But for the most part, again, get one pack of small needles, one pack of large needles. Try to avoid the straight needle ones without the pin, little beads on it, until you actually, you know your actual preference. So again, the cushion can be a ring, a regular cushion. They even have bracelets, but for the most part, you probably just want to get a regular style cushion. This can be something that get lost, or you just overlook it sometimes, but this is good. This one right here, I have for my sewing machine needles, because sewing machine needles come in different sizes for different purposes. It has on here heavy and leather and things like that, and the different size needles. And I put my needles in there, and I have more needles than these, but I didn't feel like, you know, going and putting everything in here just to show you. But I put my sewing machine needles in here, and sewing machine needles come in different sizes. They come in different sizes for different fabric types. So you don't want to use the same thing for every fabric. You will mess your sewing machine up, and your fabrics might not sew like they're supposed to. So get the right needles for whatever sewing machine brand you have and whatever project that you're working on. So make sure you get one pack of sewing needles that have a variety of needles in there. And it might have, let's see if I have something over here for you. Give an example where you can see the different sizes. Universal ballpoint needles. So you might have like green and orange, or purple and red, blue, different needles for different things, for different kinds of fabric. Okay, so just get you one pack of needles to start off with. If you can, you probably can find a universal needle. So you definitely want to get the right needle. So just get one or two packs of needles, and make sure it has different varieties in the pack. You definitely will need a seam ripper, especially starting off, because you probably have a lot of stitches that mess up. A seam ripper comes in different sizes. It basically just has this little ball here and a little sharp blade for ripping out the seams when you make a mistake, you want to take it loose. Seam ripper. This is a small, basic little one, probably costs $1, but you can get a heavy duty, bigger one, you know, with a nice little handle on it. And those come in different sizes too. And another thing that you want to get that's really important is measuring tape. You want to get a nice sewing measuring tape. This is really important when sewing. Get you a nice measuring tape. One is enough. You don't need to have two for anything. One measuring tape starting off sewing is good enough. You also might want to invest in a good ruler. Oh, this is not what I would recommend. A ruler maybe that goes up to like 1.5 feet, or just something that goes up to maybe 12 inches is good enough. But this one is a little bit longer than that. But a nice ruler. It can be metal, it can be plastic, it can be wood. Whatever's comfortable for you and whatever project you're working on. This ruler right here is rubber. Rubber, metal. You can get wood too, a wooden ruler. It's all about your preference. I also want to say to get a good pair of tweezers. These are tweezers that I have for jewelry making, but they have different sizes, different styles. Whatever feels good in your hand so that you can be able to thread your machine and pull the thread through. When you put it through the hole, you can pull the thread through. Another thing, I don't even see it right here. Another thing that's missing is my rotary wheel. I don't have it right here, but I'll be sure to include it in my machine setup video. A rotary wheel is good when you're cutting your fabric for certain things. This right here is not it. It is actually bigger than this. It has a bigger blade, and the blade can be changed. It looks sort of like a pizza cutter, but this right here is not it. This right here is used for markings when you're doing patterns, similar to this, but it's bigger. These are more so for pattern making and other things like that. So a rotary wheel is big, this size blade, and it has a handle on it like a pizza cutter. Chalk, something to mark your fabric with, you know. You might want to get some chalk. I also have chalk pencils or like sewing pencils that you can use that's erasable. It might be chalk, it might be a marker, something that is washable, that won't harm your fabrics when you're sewing. And this is like another example of a pencil. So you have the pencils, but you also have, or you can use markers. You can use for the fabric, and it's washable. This is a magnetic pen holder. This comes in handy because if you just drop the pens everywhere, because sewing sometimes can be very messy. Sewing can be messy. You just have this magnetic pen holder, and it just picks everything up all at one time. And you got your needles all, you know, back organized again. It picks up pretty much everything, and that's a good thing to stay organized. Another part of sewing that is really, really critical is having a great iron. Now, I wouldn't recommend getting something like this expensive. This iron probably cost me somewhere between $400 and $500, but you can get a basic iron from your local department store. Go to Amazon, get a nice iron. I wouldn't pay no more than, you know, maybe $20 or $30 for an iron. But if you want to invest in a good iron with some nice steam to it, that's fine too. But this is actually an iron and a steamer in one, and it has a cord, a long cord. It's definitely worth the investment, but starting off, I would get a regular iron. Having an iron is really important in sewing, and actually you can't really sew without it unless you're going to wear a lot of knits. Also, having a dress form. This is a dress form here. This is a small version I'm talking about. You pin your fabric on, and to make patterns. I would suggest if you can find one that fits your body type and make the actual garments fit how you want to according to the body shape that you're working on, and whether it be your body shape or your client's body type. One good dress form just to start off, but if not, you can skip the dress form because you can start off sewing without the dress form. And this is just starting off, so we can get to sewing. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and stay tuned for my video on setting up and organizing your workstation and setting up your sewing machine. So that's it for now. Beautiful people, future fashion designers, fashionistas, and fashion lovers, like my videos, subscribe, share, and have a beautiful day, darling.